It's like, just calm down, folks. Just calm down. I can really get into that music. Hey, it is Best Boys Center Ice Podcast 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff Wrap-Up Show. It's Carson Besse and Barry Besse from the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast, what makes sense, don't you think? And even after we had a night off after, a month and a half almost, something like that. Last night, there was no games last night, but the conference finals started tonight, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, you can get all the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff wrap-up shows on our YouTube channel, which is up to date, besides this one that'll come out tomorrow. And then all of it's Best Boys Center Ice Podcast YouTube. All of those you can find in one place on the Refocused Radio Network. Along with that is Shemaya Reed's I Am Refocused Radio and Rudy Campos Jr. with Sweep the League. Now, we do the NHL. We're doing the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's taking care of the NBA playoffs, which is in the conference finals as well. Does a great job with that. He's got Major League Baseball. He does all the other sports and some great other content besides sports. You can catch that all on the Refocus Radio Network. But we're talking hockey. We're talking Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, I went into a couple nights ago, did my prediction. I said, I think Carolina has a chance. I think Carolina is going to win this series. I looked at that game tonight, and besides maybe 7 minutes in the first period, the last 7 minutes when they had a power plays, Carolina didn't show up. Florida, even though they just had played Game 7 in Toronto a couple of nights ago, Carolina's been off for almost a week, I think.
Yeah.
Florida definitely had the edge. I think Carolina had a bit of a hangover. They better play better in Game 2. They lose tonight 5-2, but it wasn't even that close. Florida just proved why they're the Stanley Cup champions. They're proved why they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years in a row. And they're proving why, if I look, I think I saw a chart of the 4 teams left and what their percentage of winning the Cup is. And Florida's got the best chance of winning the Cup, followed by Edmonton, Dallas, and Carolina. So Florida just looked like Florida. Bob had 33 shots against him, stopped 31 of them, and was typical Bob. And if he's going to be like this the whole series, I don't see, we've always had a problem with Carolina not having enough star power to get by a goalie like Bob. And I don't think they can. I'm almost reconsidering my pick. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with Carolina, but if they don't come out in Game 2 and play at least to some sort of level of Florida, they're going to be down 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, not a good start for the Canes. This game actually marked the 13th straight game. That's 13th straight conference final game that the Canes have lost. Which is, they got swept by Florida 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got swept back in 2019 by Boston. And before that, I honestly can't remember when the last time before that was, but they've been swept 3 straight series in the conference finals and now tonight's game. I picked Florida in this series for the exact reason they won this game. Okay, they didn't have as many shots, but they were running them down, I feel like, aggressively. They were able to hit so much and just be so much of a physical presence that it's going to wear down Carolina. And I said it. I don't think they have as much star power, and that's what makes them struggle when they get further in. They can't. That's why they haven't won the Stanley Cup, is because the Canes are so defensively minded that they can't really do much anything else. So if they're struggling with defense, that's their bread and butter, and if they can't do that, then they're done for. Florida's a top to bottom really good team, and their whole lineup is contributing to this, and that's why they're winning.
Mm-hmm.
Bob again is being his usual self. He's being good in the playoffs. Freddie Anderson had not a good game. He was 75% on saves. That's not good enough. Florida scored the first 2 goals of the game, and then Carolina got back into it with a bit of a more controversial goal on that
Mhm.
no kicking motion, but I agreed with it. I think he kind of was able to guide it, but didn't really kick it.
Right.
But then Florida comes right back and responds. They get a quick one in the second, and then they get two to start off the third. And Carolina gets a power play goal at the end, but doesn't matter. The game's already over. Um, I think Florida's going to take this series, and Carolina better step it up. Otherwise, this is going to be a quick one. If they don't, this will be a repeat of 2023. I think that's just their biggest weakness is they're so defensively minded and structured that if the team's able to break through that, they're not effective anymore.
Right.
They really aren't. They don't have that juice. Like out of all the teams left, Carolina's for sure the team that scores the least.
Hmm.
They don't have to. Then the way they played against Washington, they only had to score twice or three times to win. It's not going to be like that anymore. They're going to
That,
have to score.
that's exactly what they said on the broadcast on TNT tonight. The guys were saying, "This isn't, this isn't Washington. This isn't
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey. This is the Florida Panthers. They have to play so much different. They can't just play their kind of game
That
and squeak by. They
that's
can't
why the
do that
Canes
against Florida."
lose. That's why the Canes don't make it to the Cup Finals because they don't adapt their game to the other team's style. They play Carolina Hurricanes hockey the whole way, and they don't have any adaptability. That's why they don't make it. Is because of that. A lot of these teams are able to adapt um, to how the other teams are playing. That's why they win the series. That's why they win the cup. Is because they're able to adapt. And just right now, Carolina hasn't done that, and it's shown in the conference finals that they play Carolina Hurricanes hockey through and through, and that's the way they're going to play. And they're not gonna make it out of this series that way.
Like sure, you your bread and butter is how you play the game. The Oilers are a speed team. The Oilers are a scoring team. Dallas is a speed team. Try to beat you with the long passes. But when you get to this situation, if you're Carolina, you've got to make adjustments. You've got to play. You can't just stick with it's apparent you can't stick with what got you here because what got you here wouldn't have got you here if you were playing Florida like a series or two ago. So they have to make adjustments. Can they? They don't have the star power to do this. And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'd be worried if I were a Hurricanes fan. I mean, they've already given up home ice, and Florida looks so good tonight that if they come out that way again, you know what? And I like to think I think it was Bennett after the game. Sam Bennett had said, "You know what? Yeah, it was a short turnaround, but we honestly like that because it feels like just playing another game right there. You have no time to really think about what happened. You go to the next series and go and move on and play.
yeah,
And they played a really solid game, and they've got complete control right now.
yeah.
Even though it's one game, they really do have complete control because Carolina, I feel like, is going to be more on their heels next game, trying not to lose instead of winning it. And that's where Florida's just, I feel like, going to take over. And I have Florida winning game two again. I do. I think they're
Um,
going to win again.
I think Bennett was exactly right. You come off of a 7-game series. Like I said, Carolina's been sitting for probably more than a week because they
Probably a week.
eliminated. So Florida's just like, okay, we just keep everything rolling. Where Carolina, they've been practicing and stuff like that, but they're not in that game situation. Where Florida just keeps on going, and the ball, if Carolina can't figure out how to stop this snowball from rolling downhill, it could be another sweep. If not,
Mhm.
only 5 games.
Yep.
I
I
know.
mean, it's
I'm
They
sticking
got
with
to they got to
Carolina.
adapt. They got to do what they
Yeah.
did differently, and that's change and adapt their game. If they don't, it's done. The series isn't going anywhere.
Now the good thing is it's game one, and they have time to make
Yeah.
adjustments.
Oh yeah.
But if they don't win game two, and
It's going
they're
to be tough
already,
to beat Florida twice at home, where
yeah,
we're on the road.
yeah. So again, the Florida Panthers take game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, 5-2 over Carolina. Game two is going to
Thursday.
be Thursday, probably I think 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Now, the other conference final out west between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars starts tomorrow night, 7 o'clock from American Airlines Center in Dallas. It's a rematch of last year's Western Conference Final that Carson and I were uh, there for. Game two.
Game two.
Game two, and we saw the atmosphere. We felt you don't just see the atmosphere in Dallas at
No,
American
you
Airlines
feel it.
Center. You feel it. It was like I kept turning to Carson and going, "Wow, this is even better than it was during the regular season." So the Oilers are going in as the defending Western Conference champions. They know that last year Dallas kind of fell apart at the end, and the Oilers got won 3 games in a row to take the series. So you know Dallas is not wanting to do that again. They're a little better hockey club maybe than they were last year. Although the Oilers are also a better hockey club than they were last year. They got more depth scoring, which has always been a problem. But then it's going to, like we've talked about before, even before we knew it was going to be these two teams, it's going to come down to the goaltending. And right now, as much as I hate to admit it, you have to give the advantage to Dallas and Otter. It's just a matter of can the Oilers do what they've done in the past 2 series and get into the kitchen, get into the head of Otter. He's not Aiden Hill. He's not Darcy Kemper. He's a whole different animal. He's calm, cool, collected. But if the Oilers get enough pressure, and that's what they've been doing, a lot of crease battles, a lot of stuff. If they can do that and maybe get to Otter a little bit, they could, you know, get stuff behind them. But it's all going to be, and for the Oilers, you don't have that. It's going to be Stu to start. I don't know if Pick's going to come in somewhere along the way, but Stu's going to start. But you have to play defense so good again in front of Stu, like they did in the Vegas series. They're going to have to rely on the defense again. Now, if they get Ekholm back, and I'm not sure his timeline, they keep saying in the conference finals he'll make it
back.
That they need him as his defensive prowess. It's going to take a couple of games for him to get back into it because he hasn't played since almost 4 Nations, I think. And so the Oilers have to rely on that defense to give Stu a chance to see the puck, save, one shot, out. And then the Oilers have to do what they've been known for the last couple of years and rev up that offense. Now, like I said earlier, the good thing is the Oilers' depth scoring is so much better than it was last year. It's not just McDavid and Draisaitl, even though those guys are leading the team in scoring. They're going to be a presence. I think, and I hope, I haven't seen lineup yet, that they keep them off on separate lines and use the big line as needed, but start with them on separate lines. I think they play as a team better when they're on separate lines.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting game. Personally, I think Dallas takes it tomorrow night. I think they're out of the two teams. I look at them and I just feel like they're better. I feel like they got really good this year. Otter's been playing really well. They obviously made big splashes at the trade deadline with Granlund and Rantanen coming in the fold. Defensively, they've looked pretty good. Also, I mean, despite their defensive woes at the end of the season, I think they've picked it up and really figured out just what to do. That Otter's got it, so they don't have to play where they're big. Like they don't have to be afraid to take risks. But at the same time, we know what the Oilers can do. Um, I think that's the biggest difference between these two teams right now is Otter and Stu. Stu had 2 good games at the end of that series, but a lot of defensive help. But this is a Dallas team I think that can break through that defense and really give them some problems. And this is both teams are a lot different. I don't know. You know, I want McDavid to get a cup, but I just look at this Dallas team and I think as a whole they're better. And I could be way wrong on that, but I think they are better. And I mean they've out of all the teams in the playoffs, I think they've had to battle the most adversity to make it here.
Mm-hmm.
Round one they played Colorado. No one had them winning that series, myself included, because they were down so many guys.
Yeah.
And then over time, they were able to still get those guys back. And Robertson and Haskin, they've been playing, but they're still not. I don't want to say 100%, but they're still getting traction. They haven't played hockey in a long time, and they're still able to get by and do what they are known to do, and that's just wear teams down, play so defensively smart, but still offensively have a big punch where they can score on you quick. This is going to be a different series than the Carolina Florida series by far, as far as it's just going to be very, I think, offense heavy
Mm-hmm.
versus more physicality. Uh, yeah, I like Dallas winning this series. I think they've got it in 6 or 7. Um, it all depends on what Stu shows up,
Yeah.
honestly, because we've seen both ways where he under the pressure he folds, and at the end of last series, where under the pressure he really stood tall. Uh, you got to also remember that the Oilers haven't played a hockey game in a while, but Dallas is they're in the kind of the same boat, but they played last game on Saturday, so that's not too big of
Yeah.
a break. I don't know. I mean, this is going to be such an interesting series. I just I hope the Oilers can do it, but this is what I've kind of been thinking about. You know, I'm probably way off the mark, but this is my personal opinion. Should the Oilers not win this series, I think they're still kind of in a lesser situation, but similar to what Toronto's going to be in, where their big guys, you know, are going to have to make their decisions eventually on how long they're gonna go. You know, McDavid's been around for a long time. I know Dry just got locked up, but McDavid hasn't locked up his contract yet. And you'd hope, as an Oiler fan, that he stays, but I think, breaking through this and winning the Stanley Cup will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be very, very interesting to see what that looks like should they not. I said it today before we got on. I get to my buddies. I think the winner of this series wins the whole thing.
Yeah.
I like the Florida Panthers, such a great run the last almost 2 seasons, 3 seasons now. That Florida has been the state of hockey, to be honest, really. The last 6 times, if should Florida win this series, the last 6 Eastern Conference champions would be out of Florida, which is crazy to think about. But both of these teams deserve it. Both of these teams have been playing so well, have battled a lot, and I feel like they're just going to be able to just barely wear Florida down by just the amount of games they've had to play.
Yeah.
And I'll give Florida all the credit. They've looked really good. And they show no signs of having a hangover or being tired or quitting. But I just like the Western Conference this year winning the cup. But going to be an interesting series. I see the X factor for Edmonton being McDavid, honestly. I feel like Dallas, we've seen it in person that Dallas for sometimes, I would say majority of the time, is able to lock McDavid up pretty well. But if he's able to break through, that's going to be a whole different problem for Dallas, and vice versa for the Oilers. I think they're going to have to keep a big eye out on Mikko Rantanen again.
Yeah.
He's had the hot stick this playoffs. They've got to make sure they're not overcommitting to him, but keep clogging up lanes and allowing Stu to see the puck. But I don't anticipate this to be where Dallas is only getting 20 shots a game like last series. I really don't. I think this is just going to be such an offensively
Mm-hmm.
potent series. It's going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah, I think along that lines, I'm still going with the Oilers in 6 or 7.
You have to, of course, you have to.
I have to. If I go against my own team that I've cheered for
Do you
my
do you
entire
agree
life,
with Do you agree with me, though, that the champion you feel like will come out of the
well,
West,
look at the
whichever?
Western Conference will win the championship, no doubt. Between Edmonton or Dallas, there's just I think they have too much talent, even for Florida. Though it'll be a great series, but then if you look at Florida getting in, let's do a scenario. Let's say Florida gets into the Stanley Cup. That'll be 3 years in a row at the Stanley Cup final. That means how many regular season games you play, how many games if you stretch it to 7, and that's it. Like they played a
You're
lot of
looking at
hockey
like
in the
probably
last 3 years.
150, 110 to 115 games per
So
year
it's
that
like
they've had.
you just naturally are going to get worn down, and you've seen it in other sports. You've seen it in the NHL with the Tampa Bay Lightning getting there so many times. You love getting there, but then every time you get there, you're less and less and less. So yeah, I do agree. Whoever wins out of the West wins Stanley Cup. I want the Edmonton Oilers. I haven't seen a cup raised in Edmonton since 1990. Came close in 2006. Came close, even closer last year. But it's just like I cannot go against Edmonton.
Are we going to get a rant tomorrow if it's like a 5-1 Dallas win?
It all depends on the
the type of goals.
The type of goals. We may have one because it worked last time when I ranted, and Stu must have heard me. So either way, this is going to be a fantastic series, and we know what the atmosphere is going to be like in Dallas. We know what the atmosphere is going to be like in Edmonton, inside and out, and two great hockey cities, starving for the cup, both of them. Yeah. And it's just, I love that picture of Marshy, though.
I want to, speaking of Marshy, we need to talk about that real quick, that play. What do you feel about that?
Well, I caught, I was at work, and I have it on my second screen, and what I caught was the replay. I saw the Marshy,
the fighting and stuff
like that, but I wonder, well, what happened? And then it went on, and then it showed that what he was at, the Carolina player.
I can't remember who it was.
I can't remember who it is, but he was on his 120 feet away from Florida's goal, and he deliberately was going to shoot the puck up into Marchand's face. You're 120 feet. There's no going off of somebody's stick in your face. That was a intentional intent to which afterwards in the aftermath, it was intent to hurt Marchand, but Marchand gets 4 for roughing because he instigated the little scrum. Marshy gets 10-minute misconduct, and the Carolina player is fine. But to me, it's not. It's not like a boarding.
It wouldn't have happened if that shot wouldn't have been taken.
It was a frustration play that I don't think Marshy deserved to get 4 minutes. If he did, then the Carolina player needed to be matched up, and the Carolina player needed to get a 10-minute misconduct. And my feelings on Marshy have gone back and forth over the years. He's an instigator.
I'm more on the up and up with him. I've liked him more and more now.
So, but there was no need for that when you're 120 feet away from the other team's net. Nope. And it's just, and you can tell it was the end of the game, and they were already down.
Frustrated.
They were down 5-1 already. They're frustrated. There's no need for that. You're professional athletes. You're in the conference finals. Like if you're mad, and I don't even know why he did this to Marsh, besides the fact of Marshy's reputation. It was totally, and then the call was, I kept thinking, why is Marchand getting 4 minutes? I don't get it. Maybe by the rule book, you instigate the fight, but it wasn't a fight. So you instigate the roughing. I don't know how you do that, but they both went at each other. No, I think it was just a bad call. Again, the referee's making a bad call. It's unbelievable, right, that the referees make a bad call. But, yeah, totally, Marshy didn't deserve that at all. So, tomorrow night, Oilers Stars, 7 o'clock start from American Airlines Center, just up the street from us. Well, 4 hours up the street.
Yeah.
We will be on the air, I would say probably about this time.
Yeah.
About the same time tomorrow, with a wrap-up of Game 1 and a look ahead at Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Either way you look at it, between the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals look like it's going to be chippy, which is I have no problem with that. I think at pure entertainment value, the Western Conference Final is going to be the one that's going to outdo the East. But both series are going to be great. We're going to see a lot of, I'm hoping Carolina can come to the plate and at least make it a series. But we'll be here every night through the conference finals, of course, on into the Stanley Cup finals. We've got a long ways to go, and we got only halfway there, Car. Only halfway through the playoffs. So looking forward to this, and you'll be able to get the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff wrap-up shows from the Best Boys Center Ice podcast page on YouTube, which will be available tomorrow on the Refocus Radio Network. But after I get it uploaded tomorrow, you'll be able to get it right straight off of our YouTube channel. While you're there, subscribe. We'd love to get more subscribers on our YouTube channel. It'll be on Carson's favorite, Spreaker.com, as well tomorrow. And again, after, maybe not directly after the game,
half an hour
tomorrow,
or so after.
We'll be on the air. And then with my TikTok, if, depending, I may do it that night. I may do it the next day, but I will have an update on Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals.
If the Oilers win, he'll do it tomorrow night. If they lose, he won't do it till the next day. I've gotten your pattern.
No, I've had, yeah, okay.
Because then you have to think about what you want to say.
Yeah, and if I want a good rant, I'm gonna have a good rant, I want to have it all in my head.
There were some good ones last year. You had the Darnell Nurse rants last year, and some on Stu. You had the one this year when they lost to the Bolts after the Four Nations break, and you were really upset.
Yeah.
There's been some good ones.
Yeah, so we may have to just, depending, but we'll be on tomorrow after the game, about a half hour after the game ends, with the Best Boys Center Ice podcast, 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff wrap-up show. Carson, again, great job on all the that picture of Marshy is just perfect. He does that. He does the intro, keeps everything updated, and he just does an amazing job for us here. And best analyst in hockey, right there, folks, right below me. It's the best analyst in hockey. He knows what he's talking about. All right, we're going to wrap things up for tonight. And as Carson loves me saying, because he asks me to do it every night, in the meantime and in between time, everybody, have a great hockey night.
See you tomorrow night, Dad.
See you tomorrow night, Tom.